Let's learn more about the US President. Dr. Ben Gannon is a teaching fellow in the University of Warwick's Department of Politics and International Studies, and is an expert in US politics and US foreign policy. Thanks for coming on the show, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
He's hardly been out of the headlines since he took over office, really. He wasn't in the headlines before and after. Can't leave him alone, can they?
They absolutely love him. He loves the spotlight and he loves controversy. And once again, he finds himself absolutely in the thick of it over this shutdown.
Now, for the first time, this shutdown has pretty much put him in the bad light for a lot more people than before. I guess it's not so divided. He went up against the Democrats. He could have gone either side, but it's become more focused on him, hasn't it?
I mean, absolutely. I think the problem with this shutdown is that nobody is happy with the situation that they find themselves in. Nobody wants these 800,000 workers to be going over the weekend without pay, starting the new year without their salary. Obviously, a significant portion of these workers are being made to turn up to work because their jobs are deemed essential to kind of national security. They're working without pay, and nobody's happy about this. The United States population isn't happy about this. You can see this in kind of the decreasing opinion polls of both the Democrats and the Republicans. But because of the nature of the way that President Trump has framed this crisis, in which he's basically saying, if I don't get funding for this border wall, then I'm not going to back down. He's really backed himself into a corner here, and it just finds that increasingly it's unlikely that either side is going to be able to find their way to reach a compromise on this. And it looks like the crisis is going to continue for at least the next few days.
And it has become quite a vanity project for him, because, as you said, he's put himself in the corner and he can't really back down, because this is what he sold the Americans when he took office, that he's going to build this wall. We'll get on to who's going to pay for it. But first of all, he said, I'm going to get this wall. And if he doesn't get this wall done, then he's going to be like, well, that's his main promise, isn't it?
Yeah, and the problem he's got is that although it is the case that most Americans are unhappy with the shutdown, nobody wants the government to be shut down, and most Americans are happy to blame the president, about 51% based on the polling over the weekend, for the shutdown. If you break that polling down into Democrats and Republicans, it's quite clear that actually for most of the people that voted for Donald Trump, they're overwhelmingly still in support of him pushing to get this wall built. Actually, 9 out of 10 of Trump supporters say that they support the president on this. They're happy to have the government shut down as long as they can get the funding on the border wall. If you look at the Democrats, it's a similar kind of thing where an overwhelming majority of Democrats, 8 or 9 out of 10 in some polls, are saying they don't want this border wall under any circumstances. That leaves it very difficult for politicians on either side to kind of reach any sort of consensus, because for Donald Trump, if he makes any kind of compromise in which he doesn't result out of this with a border wall, it's just going to look to his supporters like he backed down. So for him, he's really backed himself into a corner on this, and any solution that doesn't come out with funding for the border wall is going to look like a big failure for an individual that prides himself on winning, on getting victories out of these situations.
And also backing down on who was going to pay for it as well. We all knew that it was going to be Mexico who pays for it. And when he was asked about it and several times, he was like, if they don't pay for it, it's going to go 12 feet more up and all the rest of it. Now he's saying, no, I didn't quite say that. I didn't say they were going to cut the check. He's a man that goes back on what he says constantly.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of flip-flopped a little bit already on this. As we know from the campaign, he kind of made these big, quite bold claims that this wall would be huge, it would be made of concrete, Mexico would be paying for it directly in a one-off payment. And ever since then, he started to kind of back down. Now he's saying that he would be happy to have some kind of steel fence, because he knows that in the past the Democrats have shown a limited amount of support for a fence rather than a wall. He said he would happy for that to be quite an inexpensive thing. Originally, he said it would cost about $15 billion and that Mexico would pay for that. Now he's saying it'll probably cost around $5 billion. He's happy for it to be a lot smaller. And now you're absolutely right. He originally said Mexico would pay for it. This was a big campaign promise. And he's saying, well, he never actually said that. What he means is that they'll pay for it indirectly because they're likely to receive kind of less aid, less financial remittances sent back home by Mexican immigrants. So he's absolutely changed his tune on this. And it's looking like in reality, probably the way that he's likely to get this most funded is if he declares some sort of national emergency and he gets the U.S. Defense Department to pay for the wall directly. So this wall, if it does end up being built, will definitely be built by U.S. taxpayers' money.
And through all this, he's still got the not ghost of Christmas past, I was going to say, the ghost of the Mueller investigation haunting him.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you look at kind of the coverage he's been wanting to talk about over the past weekend, he's been much more keen to talk about these allegations that have come out in the New York Times over the weekend, saying that the FBI have investigated him as to whether he's basically been working in some guise for the Kremlin, for Russia. Now, he's very keen to kind of throw this out there to his supporters to say, look, they're attacking me, they're not impartial, everybody's out to get me. But as we know, behind the scenes, we've still got yet to have the conclusions from the Mueller investigation, which is still going on. That's gone very quiet, and this is something that Robert Mueller has been very good to do, that when there is a big story going on, we do kind of see a quieting down of the Mueller investigation. But as everybody knows, that's still a story that we've got to have happen, and we are still expecting the final report in the next few weeks. So for the president, he will be looking to do anything he can to steer the story away from Mueller.
Wonderful insight. Thanks very much for coming on the show, Dr. Ben Gannon, there, teaching fellow in the University of Warwick Department of Politics and International Studies. I hope you have a better day than President Trump, Ben.
Thank you very much. I'll try my best.
Next, more news for London. LBC London News.